I'm going to talk about Oracle Jet. There's also an article in the magazine on some page, Oracle JavaScript Extension Toolkit, so you can read more about it. At the end, my colleague Remco will share some differences, comparisons with other solutions, in particular from Oracle. And hopefully you get a perspective on what this is all about. And the good news is everything that we're talking about is free and open source. And that's the parts of Oracle that I work on. I really focus on the open source technologies that Oracle produces, and there are a number of them. Also, at the end of this session, you can pick up a voucher, and you can take that voucher to the Oracle booth, and then Oracle people at that booth will give you a free t-shirt. So we have vouchers lying here for you to pick up, and you can see it's a pretty cool t-shirt. I think, therefore, I code Java, which is a nice thing to wear after a JavaScript session. The first question worth asking is, why is Oracle doing anything with JavaScript at all? And so I want to, first of all, talk a little bit about why Oracle is involved in the JavaScript ecosystem, which, of course, is a very problematic ecosystem. I'll talk a bit more about that as well. It's a very unstable ecosystem. And a question worth asking is, why isn't Oracle doing Java in the browser in some way? What's the relevance of JavaScript? And the relevance of JavaScript, of course, is that it's the native language of the browser, first of all. And increasingly, it's becoming more and more popular. More and more people coming out of colleges and universities come with JavaScript knowledge. The ecosystem itself is constantly evolving. And Oracle, like all other organizations, is increasingly interested in the cloud. And every second word spoken by an Oracle speaker on any stage is cloud. But cloud means more than storing data somewhere. It means more than data in the cloud. It means more than storage. It also means, of course, that you want to, at some point, create an application that manipulates that data in the cloud. And when you create applications in the enterprise space, you need components like these, charts and graphs, and these kinds of visualizations, these kinds of data visualization components. And what Oracle has done is it has created these components in JavaScript on top of jQuery UI, and these are all open sourced. So in fact, if you go to GitHub, if you go to github.com/Oracle, and you find there's a whole bunch of stuff by Oracle on GitHub, but there's also Oracle Jet. And what you'll find in this repository here is a very long list of JavaScript files. And these are the components that Oracle has open sourced and that you can include in your application. But these are pure jQuery UI widgets. So if you are creating an application in any other kind of framework, for example, Angular, and you want to have graphs or charts, you can just take these graphs or charts from here. You don't have to pay anybody anything. You don't have to ask anybody anything. And you can drop those charts into your Angular application or into any JavaScript application and use them there. So that's the simplest level at which the Oracle Jet story exists, on the level of there's a component library that you can use in your applications. And from Oracle's point of view, it makes sense because it means that the different organizations within Oracle don't all have to make their own graphs and charts, but that there is a common component library for that. And that's been open sourced, so anyone else can use those, and anyone else can contribute to that, contribute to that component library. So throughout Oracle, different organizations are all creating cloud services. So there's a mobile cloud service, a developer cloud service. Every on-premise part of Oracle is creating one or more cloud services to make available the data that they are responsible for. So each of those cloud services at some point needs some kind of UI. So for example, you see here a screenshot of the Solaris dashboard. The Solaris dashboard is a UI on top of Solaris, and you can monitor the processes going on there in this Solaris dashboard. And this is written, you can see it's a very visual application. There are graphs and charts in it. And here's another such application. This is from the BI Visual Analyzer Data Visualization Cloud Service. And it's another cloud service providing data, but again, you need to visualize the data in some way. So the organization behind that within Oracle has created an application needing visualizations that use these charts and components that are part of this GitHub repository. Here's another example of such an application. You can see that these are all typically dashboard applications. So if you are creating some kind of dashboard application that you need to have access to from the browser, wherever that browser is, on mobile devices, on desktop, on tablets, or whatever, and you need to create some kind of visual UI like this, then you should really look at these graphs and charts. But Oracle Jet is more than graphs and charts, and that's a really important point. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning. This is the most important point about all of this, before the T-shirt even. Oracle Jet, so it's JET, JavaScript Extension Toolkit, and that T is the most important. So it's not a framework. It's not a full stack framework like Angular is. It's not a library, so it's not jet.js. Instead, it is a toolkit. You should really see it as a toolbox full of different solutions. And one of the solutions is a component library. But that's only part of it, because you need much more than just components when you're creating JavaScript applications. You need to have an architecture. It would be useful to have some templates. It would be useful to have some patterns, some convention over configuration. It would be useful to have some solutions to the typical problems that you have in enterprise development. For example, internationalization, right-to-left display for Arabic and for Hebrew and for those kinds of languages. They need to switch the display of the text and of the components and so on. You need to have accessibility built in so that somebody with a screen reader can plug into your application and have access to those components. You need to have modularity so that the application, when it becomes bigger, can be broken up into smaller pieces. You need to have responsive design so that the application refits itself based on the current resolution in which the application is displayed. So all of these typical kinds of concerns are concerns that different organizations within Oracle also have. So what we've done is we have put together a bunch of components and a bunch of different solutions and gathered them together into this toolkit. And we've made this available for anyone else to make use of as well as the basis of their applications. So that's kind of the vision behind this. And so here are some of the examples that have been created within Oracle on this. But just quite recently, there was a session of the Oracle Group Holland, where there was a presentation by an organization in Belgium called Contribute, an Oracle partner. And they showed this mobile application. And it's for truck drivers in the Antwerp harbor. They type in some number which is associated with the warehouse where they have to deliver their products. And then they get a map, and they were shown exactly where they need to go to deliver their stuff. So it's a very specialized location-based application specifically for these truck drivers for this particular organization working in the Antwerp harbor. And this application is created in Jet. So Jet is a toolkit for creating applications in JavaScript, whether for the browser on the desktop or a browser on mobile phone. And what is used to convert that JavaScript is Cordova. So PhoneGap/Cordova is a generically available, it's Apache project, Apache Cordova, which you can use to convert your JavaScript into a or hybrid Android file or iOS file or Windows mobile file for uploading to one of the app stores. And this is also part of this part of the story. What is also important is that we decided not to create yet another framework. So this is the point, that this is a toolkit of existing solutions. So when we wanted to include modularity in the toolkit, we didn't create our own module system. There's enough module systems out there already. JavaScript in ECMAScript 6 natively supports it, but it's quite new. So the other thing we decided is we're not going to take the latest version of everything. We're not going to do the latest hyped thing, because hypes are interesting today but gone tomorrow, which is exactly the problem in the JavaScript ecosystem. So we chose solutions that have existed for a while, that are not the newest solutions. So for example, modularity. We decided we will not create our own module system. We will not take the latest and greatest module system. We'll take one that's slightly older, but that's stable, that has a community. Another advantage is, so in the case of modularity, we chose require.js. Big advantage, all the documentation for the module system is already there. The community is already there. We don't need to describe how the module system works. We just say, go to require.js. Go to that page and find out how the modularity works. Something else is, for the data binding between the view and the business logic, we didn't create our own solution. We just reuse the solution that Knockout provides. So when you have an Oracle Jet application, you will have a long list of libraries, and none of them will look strange in the sense of being completely new. They're just all these existing libraries, and we've included them and bundled them together into one pack that is your list of libraries in your Oracle Jet application, including jQuery, including jQuery UI. Now, a logical question that you then ask is, well, what happens if require.js stops being developed? What happens if this is no longer developed? What happens if Knockout stops being developed? The good thing about the libraries we chose is they are all open source. These are all open source libraries. So if one of them stops being developed for some reason, Oracle can take over the development of that particular library itself. Or we can take out that library, because this is the other interesting thing about the JavaScript ecosystem. It is constantly changing. So we know already we will not have require.js forever for our modularity solution. We will not have Knockout forever for our data binding solution. But as something better comes up, we will examine it, we will explore it, and we will replace the library that we have been using with a new one. And it will definitely have some impact on existing applications. But we are trying to manage it, because in the JavaScript ecosystem, this happens all the time. You know, something that you've written today, in 6 months or in a year, has to be rewritten when there's an upgrade to another version of your particular framework or your particular library. What we are doing is we're saying, we accept that situation. That's the way it is. But let's try and manage that situation. Let's try and choose libraries intelligently, include them in our solution, and replace them as needed. So if we replace our data binding solution, we're only impacting our data binding parts of the code. If we replace a modularity solution, we're only impacting that part of the code. So we're trying to manage the kind of instability of the JavaScript ecosystem in that way. So we, as anyone else, started out by looking at all these different libraries. You know, you see many comparisons there of all the different application frameworks, of all the different libraries that are out there in the JavaScript ecosystem, and everything is interesting and fun, and you start using it. And it's nice in the context of games and prototypes, but as soon as you want to create something larger, you run into a problem with your Angular or with your Meteor or with something, and then you go to Stack Overflow and you find the solution, but the solution depends on you using the library that you're having a problem with, plus 4 other libraries that you're not using, because your stack is different to the stack that is described in the Stack Overflow answer. And also, all these libraries are constantly changing, and you know, this is the reality of the JavaScript ecosystem. And that's when you start to appreciate the Java ecosystem so much more, because of course, Java EE develops as slowly as something, you know, very, very slow, which, you know, we all complain about in different levels and are frustrated with. But when you see the JavaScript ecosystem, then you realize the beauty of stability that the Java ecosystem offers us. At the same time, there's all this innovation in the JavaScript ecosystem. There's all these new libraries, all these new possibilities. You know, browsers becoming better, HTML5 specification, you know, CSS3 specification, all these different specifications. More and more enthusiasm, you know, more and more stability, and also more and more organizations, large organizations, the IBMs, the Salesforce, you know, Oracle, Microsoft, all these different organizations also working with JavaScript. Now, an interesting one that you might not know about is called Kraken. So Kraken.js. This is a framework built on top of Node. And that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is, look, who created it? PayPal. PayPal has an open source division where they have, in the same way as Oracle has, open sourced an internal framework. So they have an internal framework created on top of Node, and they've called it Kraken. Very cool logo and very cool page with all this you know, information. So this is on top of Node and on top of Express. Another example is ING. This Spectingular is the framework that I used to hear a lot about a few years ago. I'm not sure how active it is anymore, but ING has a set of components and a framework that they use internally to create the ING sites, which is on GitHub. So all these different organizations, large organizations, are investing in JavaScript on the one hand, and are also investing in open source, making those solutions that they've created internally generally available. So it is a sign that the JavaScript ecosystem is a pretty stable place, that large organizations are banking their software, their application development cycles on top of that ecosystem. And I think a nice thing about these organizations, the IBMs and the Salesforce and the Oracle and the PayPal, is that you know if you create your applications on top of their open source solutions, which are based on their internal solutions, those solutions will be there for a while. It's not one random guy somewhere at home writing a library and then you start happily using it and then tomorrow it's not being developed anymore. These are serious systems, different solutions, different approaches, but all different kinds of starting points for your own applications, for the cloud, for the browser, for mobile phones, where you know that the people behind it are using it themselves in large applications. So there is some reason to believe that those starting points, those frameworks, toolkits, libraries have a future. So of course there's these different frameworks and libraries. You know, there's Grunt. A few years ago, everyone was saying Grunt is the way to do your builds in the JavaScript ecosystem. And then just when you're comfortable with Grunt, you learn Gulp is the new Grunt, apparently. And then once you're very comfortable with Gulp, you find out Brunch is the new Gulp. And there's also Yarn, which somehow connects to this. And there's, you know, this is the case for all these different solutions. You know, just as you've caught up with the latest thing, there's the new latest thing that you have to run after. So in the case of Jet, what we've done is we've taken Grunt as our default build system. And we've taken jQuery because jQuery is used by anyone doing JavaScript. And then on top of that, we have Knockout for data binding, and we have Require for modularity. And then there are testing frameworks to choose from, and we have chosen some testing libraries. We also have Yeoman support, so you can type Yo Oracle Jet on the command line, and you will have scaffolded your Oracle Jet application. What you do on the back end is up to you. This is purely a front-end solution. So you can use Node.js on the back end, you can use Java EE on the back end, you can use Spring on the back end, anything you want. Typically, you would have some REST endpoint that you want to integrate into the front end that you've defined in Oracle Jet. But this is purely a UI level concern that Oracle Jet is focused on. So so at some point you have to organize all your different, all the Googling that you do for different solutions, and you organize them into different categories, and you compare them with each other, and then you end up in a big argument with somebody somewhere online who says, well, you know, you're comparing performance between these two different things, but performance for what? And this whole discussion, etc. And it's all very entertaining what you can do. And then at the end, you find it's a big jungle. And so we did this as well. We came to a point where we want to standardize around a bunch of libraries, and that's really the Jet solution. And the libraries we chose as our starting point had to meet these requirements. So these are basically some of the high-level enterprise requirements, that you have responsive design so that the application automatically refits itself depending on the resolution, modularity, single-page application architecture, built-in accessibility, internationalization, security concerns, optimization, standards where there are to follow those and to be aware of those, documentation, support. All these different concerns are handled in one way or another within the Jet solution. And we are really seeing that within Oracle, this is becoming more and more widely used. It's really interesting. There's a MOOC that you can take. I can point you to this right away. So there's the Oracle Jet homepage. You can type oraclejet.org and you will be on the homepage. And you will see that there's an examples page that you can get to. And here I am on the examples page, and you can take an online training. And this is a 3-week course for free that you can take. And each week you get 10 YouTube clips, and you get to listen to me speak for 10 YouTube clips. And then you get some tasks at the end of each YouTube clip. And at the end of each week you do a quiz. And if you've done all three quizzes, and you've got over 70%, you get a certificate to say that you have completed the course. And we've done one edition of this before Java 1 Open World, and we did one after. So the second edition is just finishing, and we're starting another one in a week or two. And we're already seeing thousands of people signing up, and it's great because we don't have to go anywhere and give courses. We can just say, hey, go here. It's here. It's for free, and it's easy to get started with. And it really covers everything. It really gives you a very good starting point for working with this. So yes, require a knockout. I could show some demos, but I'll show you some Jet demos instead, how these things fit together. Yes, so these are the base libraries. So if you're on oraclejet.org, you go to the end of the page, you will see at the bottom here jQuery, jQuery UI for the base of the widgets, and once web components become more stable and more reliable, and once they're a year or two old, then we will base our applications, base our component set on top of web components instead of jQuery UI. But we just want to wait. Once as soon as the hype is over, then we will consider and evaluate that as the basis of our widgets. We're just very conservative in what we select because we are creating enterprise applications that we want to be able to continue working on for years to come, and not just disappear from one week to the next. Knockout for data binding, require, and Cordova for creating hybrid applications. If you then click on the Get Started button, you will be on this page where you will see all the different things you need to install. So these are just standard in the JavaScript ecosystem. So Yeoman and Bower for dependency management, and Grunt for building, and the Oracle Jet generator you will need to install, and then you can do Yo Oracle Jet, and it will generate your application. And you will have purely JavaScript, CSS, HTML, nothing else, which you can open into any editor that supports JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and work with it there. We have special support for NetBeans, and in the form of a plugin. And that plugin, before NetBeans 8.2, you had to install separately. You had to go to Tools and Plugins and install it. But in the latest release, 8.2, it's simply part of the build. So as soon as you've started up NetBeans, you're able to go to this project wizard here and select Oracle Jet Quick Start Basic, and you go through this, and you have the same thing as you would have if you type Yo Oracle Jet. So you can type Yo Oracle Jet on the command line and generate your starting point, or you can use NetBeans to generate that application. And what you then have is an application that looks like this, and now I'm just going to run it, and let's take a look where I have it. Here it is. So here you can see dashboard, incidents, customers, about. So it's a template that gives you this starting point. If I change the resolution, look what happens. Magically, that menu bar along the top disappears, because now I'm in a mobile resolution. And I have this little hamburger icon on the top, and I have this, what you would expect to see on a mobile device. And when I switch resolution again to the web resolution, I will see this like this. Whatever we do in the application, so you can see here I'm in index.html. Whatever we do, we stay within index.html. So this is a single-page application architecture. So you have here a single-page application architecture, and you have this phone and web resolution-solving thing, a responsive design built in. But you also have modularity built in. So you can see here this is called dashboard and incidents and customers. And I look in the source code, and I look in here, and I see here dashboard, customers, incidents, and about. And those are exactly the same items that I see along the top here. When I look in the view here, I can see here the same kind of naming convention as up here. So what we're doing with Jet is we want to create some kind of logical structure for JavaScript applications. Convention over configuration. Anyone who inherits my application from within Oracle, for example, will be able to understand how my application is structured. They'll go to my view models folder, and they will see JavaScript files, and they'll go to the views folder and see HTML files. These are hard-coded by default locations for the JavaScript and for the HTML. You can override that, but this is a default situation. And you can see that, it's not a coincidence that these files have the same name. So each of these items that you see here in the menu, when you click on them, you open a different section in the page within the single page application, and each section is provided by a different module. And a module has at least business logic, and it can have a view. And let's take a look at what the business logic looks like. Here you can see, if you know anything about require, require has something called define blocks, which defines what a module is. So you can see here, this is a module in the sense that we have business logic, but we also have a description of the environment for this piece of business logic. So in require.js terminology, this is a module. So again, we didn't create a new module system, we're just using the syntax of require. And so we have require listed in here, and you can see here in the libraries require. How much time? Okay, we have require and we have jQuery, so we can use all of these different things. So we have a logical structure for organizing our code. And you can create folders within this, and you can organize this differently, and you don't have to do view models and views. You could use a feature-based approach to organizing your code. There are different ways of structuring, but this is the default behavior. Now, what is also very nice, and this is a feature that is part of the Jet 2.1.0 release, we have built in something called composite components. And here I will show you the impact of this. Let's run this application first. And while I do that, let's see, header, home. Okay, here it is running. So first of all, what I have in the home page is I've integrated a date picker. So this is a jQuery UI date picker built into my Oracle Jet application. So the point is, it's an open client architecture. If you're missing a component, there's a long list of components. You're missing a component, you can integrate it very easily. So this is a jQuery UI date picker component. The second thing you see here in the people page, here it is, look at this, people.html. Let's take a look. So we can see here that we have here KO for each, and this is knockout. So this is a knockout for each loop. And it looks like it's commented out, but that's just a syntax from knockout. So in knockout, if you do a for each loop, this is the syntax that you use. It looks strange, you get used to it. However, you can see here for each of the customers, we are creating here a DOM element called customer. And of course, that doesn't exist in HTML5, there is no such thing, but I've defined this myself. And you can see here, if I look in this Jet composites folder, I have here a subfolder called customer. And in here, there's something called loader.js, which defines, again, it's a define block, it's a require module. It defines a new element that I can use in my application called customer, which is composed of an HTML file and a JSON file. So this is the model, and here is the view. And I can see it here, I can see my customers listed here. So I started off with people HTML, and you can see we loop through the customers. And where do those customers come from? Well, it's a Jet module, so this is the view. So then we look at the business logic. And here you can see that we're building up here a list of customers. So, and this is just pure require and knockout in action here. So we have a list of customers which could come from somewhere else. I've hard-coded here, but it could come from some REST service. We have a bunch of customers, and they're rendered within the view for each of the customers that is there. And so we have this concept of what I call composite components. So it's a component. You can see it's a component in the sense that we have this element here defined, composed from an HTML file and a JSON file. But it could also be more complex. So you can look here at this example, where you can see this very nice display for customers. And again, it's composed, but in this case, not from an HTML file and a JSON file only, but also with CSS and JavaScript. So you can throw in business logic, you can throw in a CSS style sheet as well. So at the end of this, you have something called demo card. And then you can use demo card in your HTML and pass in the attributes, fill in the attributes from your logic. Another example is here a memory game. So this is a composite component that is built up from other composite components. So it's a nested. So on the one hand, there's a card, and on the other hand, there's a game. And the game is made up of cards. So you can nest these components within each other. And then we only refer to the demo memory game element in our view, and the demo memory game element then loads up the demo cards into the application. What we want to do with this is ultimately we want there to be a marketplace. And in that marketplace, you can publish these components. So you could say, well, if you want to have your the possibility of displaying your customers in this interesting way, like this, in these blocks with these visualizations and this spinning stuff, you would take that folder that defines that particular card, so that's this one, you would zip it up, you would upload it somewhere into the marketplace, you would make it available for free or for money or whatever, and these are web components. So each of these components, these composite components, follow the web component standard. So it's HTML, JavaScript, JSON, CSS, that's it. You throw in this extra file here which defines that component, but for the rest of it, it is a pure web component. We want there to be a marketplace ultimately where this will be published for free or for money, and then someone can buy it, they can unzip it into their folder and make use of that component within their application. We also want this to be usable across different products within Oracle. So take this one composite component and use it within the application Builder Cloud service, or use it within Apex, or use it somewhere else. So we want there to be a common architecture across different Oracle products that will all understand this common composite component idea, and so you can build something in one place and then reuse it in another place. So there's a lot of interesting ideas around reuse that is built into all of this. So I've shown you a demo of an Oracle Jet application from scratch. So we just ran this application. Adding new content into the application is as simple as going to the cookbook. So I'm on the home page. We've seen the Get Started section with the yeoman there. You can also then click on Use Cookbook, and then you will see all the components that are available. And if you click on one of these items, you will be on this page, for example, for the charts. And these are not just pictures, this is actual code. So you can copy and paste directly from here. So I can copy for example, if I want to have this chart, I can also change this live in the browser. So you can see that, let's just refresh this page here. Let's see if I can refresh it, yes. So we have bar charts, and at the bottom we have these buttons. So let's say we want to integrate this into our application, but we don't want this toolbar along the bottom. So before we copy in our code, I can go in here and I can just say, okay, let's just remove all of this. Okay, remove that. And then I say apply changes, and now that toolbar is gone. So okay, this is what I want to have in my application. So you can see, this is like a JS Fiddle, a visual JS Fiddle directly in the browser. So now I copy this. And let's see where we want this to be. Here's our application. Let's put this in the dashboard. Okay, so very easy to find. Here's the views. Here's the dashboard. I'll paste this in there and save it. And then we have to load that component that we are using here. So you can see we're using an OJ chart component. So I'll go into the dashboard side, and I'll go back to the cookbook, which is here. And now here are all the properties of that component. So you can see in our HTML that we are referencing here different properties. So we need to define them. And they are defined here. So I just copy them from here. And I put them into my JavaScript side. And very importantly, we need to specify that we want to have that chart. So this is the functionality from require.js. So we say, okay, I want to have this chart. I'll copy this. And we want this to be loaded without that there. And we go back to the page. And there is our chart. So this is really the style of working. You find the components you need in the cookbook, you copy them from there, and you put them into your application. You connect them together using Knockout. The way to connect one component to the other, if that's needed, you use Knockout for that. You can create data visualizations like this. You can do form-based applications. There are wizards, there are tables, there are grids. There's all kinds of components like that. So these are the key points that I really want to make. If there are 5 things that you remember, it should be these. This is, first of all, if you are completely new to JavaScript, first learn basic JavaScript. The assumption is you know some basic JavaScript already. You don't have to be a genius JavaScript developer. Actually, we're working on extending our 3-week MOOC to make it a 4-week MOOC, to have like a week 0, in which you learn basics of JavaScript, because a lot of the questions that we found people asking about the MOOC is, what's Bower? So a lot of people who are taking the MOOC come from a non-JavaScript background. And so we want to have a series of YouTube clips that go through Bower, one clip on Bower, one on, one that covers jQuery, one about JavaScript itself, the language, to give people a starting point into the full 3-week course. But once you have some basic JavaScript, just with a Java background, it's more or less enough to get into the Oracle Jet story. It's a lot of copying and pasting and connecting the components together and things like that. So that's the first point. You need to have some basic JavaScript background. Second point is everything here is open source. No one has to ask anybody for anything. You don't have to pay anybody for anything. You can just take these things and use this as part of your application or as the basis of your applications. It is focused for Oracle. This is why it's interesting. It really enables people to quickly create data visualizations, to create UIs on top of the Oracle Cloud Services. But also, it's very useful for Oracle consultants who go to a customer and talk about a service, but that service only becomes real once you say something visual. So they can also, the more technical consultants, pre-sales people within Oracle can create demos to demonstrate how a particular service works or what's relevant about it. So that's also a key customer of this product. And in fact, our key customer for Oracle Jet is Oracle itself. And it's being increasingly and really widely adopted within Oracle. Whenever we have a session, a lot of people turn up. And it's also really a differentiator. Even though it's free, it turns out to be a key differentiator when we are competing with other organizations for a particular customer. We go to the customer and we talk about the Oracle Cloud, and they say, yeah, it's very similar to the SAP Cloud, isn't it? And then we say, yes, but we have this nice toolkit that you can use to extend our cloud offering. So in addition to our SaaS offering, you can create your own SaaS applications that are based on the same kind of architecture and ideas as the SaaS products that you've bought. And that is a very attractive proposition. So Oracle has a lot of interest in this, and we're very busy talking about this everywhere. The other point is that it is enterprise ready, so accessibility, modularity, these kinds of things. If I can maybe get to a quick example of that. So here are the components. Here's the components. So if I can get to the gauges. Okay, here are the gauges. And so here is a dial gauge. And yeah, so I can use either my keyboard or my mouse to change this dial within the page. I don't have to use my mouse for this. I can, automatically built into all of the components is accessibility. So accessibility, modularity, internationalization, switching from left to right and those kinds of things, and it's all on GitHub. Increasingly, of course, this is becoming more and more mobile focused. So for that reason, there is native theming support to make your UI look like a native iOS, Android, or Windows app. And also typical mobile features like sticky headers and pulling to refresh and the off-canvas element that I showed you as well. So increasingly we're focusing on different mobile solutions. We are also following as many standards as we can in this crazy JavaScript ecosystem, the ones that make sense, the ones that are more stable. So, for example, the two-way data binding, that concept we are following by implementing it using Knockout. jQuery UI we're using as the basis of the widgets. We have, within Oracle applications, definitely accessibility requirements, so we have a lot of solutions built in for that. So all these typical enterprise requirements that we have within Oracle, you can use yourself, and all for free on top of this generic toolkit. And now a few words about Oracle Jet versus other solutions.
Thank you. Is it open or not? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now you can. Yeah, okay. So we also, as Geert-Jan already said, mostly is about enterprise systems, what also Jet is for the toolkit. Many customers are also asking, so, okay, Oracle, you have also ADF, what is going to be the plan forward for this? So it's all already been said multiple times, also set out inside of this spreadsheet, inside of this table. ADF and Jet will be standing there side by side. So the toolkit is for indeed the JavaScript client developer. ADF is more based on GE and also more for the SaaS applications, as also seen within the Oracle Cloud. For the dashboards, as already shown, and also by the demos, that's more Jet based. So over here you see also the differences, just to give you an overview of for who it is. I'm still debating about that because every Java developer at the moment is also interested in JavaScript client development. So I think that distinction is going to slide away further and further because most of the technologies which are coming over are on the JavaScript side also. Some other things are for the customization and for the data services. There are some differences in it and how you want to use it. As I said, it's based on Java EE and Jet on the open source libraries for the enterprise customers. Yeah, that's more specific to our products line. Is more aligned with the integration solutions for the Fusion middleware for BI and Web Center, and Jet can be built on any application you want. So
perfect. So where we are is I've gone through the basic story. What we're doing with Oracle Jet is making available the toolkit that we within Oracle are making use of ourselves. And we actually started with this about 3 years ago, working on exploring the possibilities of JavaScript in enterprise applications. And like I said, PayPal, IBM, Microsoft, Salesforce, all these large organizations in the enterprise space all have some kind of solution, are all exploring the open source. But what I find really interesting is that despite the instability of the JavaScript ecosystem, that these large organizations are all making use of it in some way or another. So in a way, you could say maybe it's stabilizing. On the other hand, it also indicates that all these organizations want to be active in the cloud and need to create some kind of UI for that. And JavaScript simply is the native language of the browser. So it makes sense to ask yourself the question, should we go through some kind of conversion process as the standard Java mechanisms require, since there's no Java built into the browser, or should we go in the native language of the browser? The other question you can ask is, just because the browser needs JavaScript, do I need to code in JavaScript? You could take a next step and say, well, JavaScript is the machine language of the browser. And who wants to code in machine language, right? So in that case, you could take a variety of options in the Java ecosystem, for example, Vaadin or Gluon or JukeScript. So those are 3 solutions that you could examine. So gluonhq.com is one of these. The other one is JukeScript.com. And then the other one is Vaadin on top of Google Web Toolkit. So these are different solutions from a Java point of view, where the idea is just because the browser needs JavaScript doesn't mean that I as a programmer need to code in JavaScript. And so you can continue coding in Java, and somehow each solution in a different way produces JavaScript for the browser or a hybrid type application for mobile devices. The way Oracle is going in this area is definitely with JavaScript, and the way that we are doing this is with this toolkit, Oracle Jet. So yes, mobile features, more and more mobile features coming. We're following the standards, and all the existing solutions within Oracle, all the different technologies continue to exist, but I'm definitely seeing more and more interest around the Oracle Jet approach. At the moment, we have a Twitter handle, Oracle Jet. We have a YouTube channel. We have the MOOC that I mentioned. and that you can take. We're starting the next edition of the MOOC in a few weeks. You have Yeoman to start up the application, and there is also very nice a reference implementation. So if you click on Try Demo, you will see this demo application. This is the Works Better app, which has been written in different ways within Oracle over the years, but it's written now in JavaScript using Oracle Jet. So again, you can see this little hamburger thing at the side, and when you increase the resolution, you will see that everything fits together, and you have this dashboard on this people, and it's an employee management system or a customer management system, and it solves all these different problems, and it shows you how such an application works. Aside from that, there's also a lot of different documentation. So there's this JavaScript documentation, but there are also examples. There is a full developer guide. It's a PDF document of hundreds of pages covering all of the topics. There's a forum with where you can ask any question you like, and people are very helpful. There's a blog. This is really focused on being, we're really building a community around this, an open source community with people who are really active and involved in this solution. That is Oracle Jet. So oraclejet.org and the Oracle Jet Twitter handle. Are there any questions from anybody?
How is this in relation to the JavaFX? For Java
Yes.
for desktop?
Yes. Well, if you want to do JavaFX, this is not the right solution, and this is purely the browser-based solution. If you want to do JavaFX, you're creating a desktop application, and those two different technologies fit fine together. You could have one system that has a desktop part in JavaFX and a browser part, which is in Oracle Jet, and a mobile part in Oracle Jet. So all these different technologies could work fine together. I think, for example, in air traffic control systems, I would be very worried if you had an air traffic control system on your mobile phone. Right? You need to have a large resolution, you need to do heavy data processing, so you would make probably an application on the desktop in Swing or in JavaFX, and then you would receive some mobile urgent notifications on the mobile phone, and you would have your Oracle Jet application in the browser with some charts and graphs showing the current status for the management people, and not for the actual controllers who would be using that JavaFX application. So I think all these different technologies complement each other. I don't think one is replacing another. I think technologies now find a better place where they belong. And I think anyone who says that the desktop is not going anywhere is wrong. The desktop is a very good place. It's used for scientific applications, for air traffic control systems, for risk management systems, and they're behind the firewall. People aren't blogging, hey, I'm creating an air traffic control system. People aren't tweeting about that because those are secure systems, often defense force type systems. You don't hear about them very much, but it doesn't mean that they are not being created. So JavaFX is great and Swing is great, and it fits into the Oracle Jet ecosystem very well. We have the vouchers that you can pick up here, and you can take it to the Oracle booth, and then you'll get a t-shirt. Thank you very much for coming.